What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mo Buckets podcast. My name is Hoodie Ben. We got the squad here. To my right, we got the Vision. Frankie Vision, what's good?
What's good, people? What's good?
And then we got Mr. No Look Pass, Magic Mitch.
What up?
And lastly, we got, Sneaker Sean, man. Welcome back.
What up? Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's been a minute, man. How you guys feeling?
Feeling good.
Big news in the NBA. Can't wait to talk about it.
Dude, grab your popcorn, grab your drinks, man. It's been a crazy week. Let's jump straight into this, man. We got the Mo Buckets of the week. This week goes to
now they always say congratulations.
The OKC Thunder, man. We ragged on them the last couple of weeks, man. They started off 0-5. Lots of questions around them. But now that everybody's back on the same page, they're rolling, man. They've won 7 of their last 8 after that 0-5 start, and they've had pretty convincing wins against Houston, Cleveland, New Orleans, Washington, Charlotte, Clippers, and Phoenix. Their lone loss was to Dallas, and surprisingly, a lot of this was without Westbrook after he went down. So the team's kind of rallied around. Schroeder's been playing extremely well. What do you guys think?
I think if you look at Paul George, he started off the season pretty slowly, but the past few games he's really turned it up, especially on the defensive end. I can't remember. I need to just check, but he's averaging so many more steals. I think he's leading the league now in steals per game. So he's definitely stepped up without Westbrook.
Like Mitchell just said, I think the team's trying to step up. With Westbrook out, it's forcing the team to kind of play a little bit more of a fluid style. Steven Adams has been great on defense too. It's showing a lot of hope. It's showing a lot of prospects for the OKC Thunder. I don't know if they can sustain this though. I
mean, if you look at the schedule and their wins that they've had, the schedule hasn't been that strong. Like they lost against Dallas. Dallas, they're a pretty feisty team. But if you look at the other teams that they beat, Cleveland.
Big win against the Rockets the other day.
Yeah, but then they've also they beat Washington, Charlotte, not the greatest teams. So
we can beat Washington right now.
Yeah, so it's like whether you think that, the bad start was because of the schedule or this good last stretch has been because of the schedule, it remains to be seen just how good they can be at full strength. But, we'll see what happens.
And I think one thing that we often forget is because Westbrook's so ball dominant, we kind of forget how talented this Oklahoma City team is. If you take away Westbrook, there's still lots of weapons that can step up, like Schroeder, for example. So, it's good to see these guys play up to their capability, and I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, to add to that, I think, this team this season has a lot more depth than they had in previous seasons, right? Like, with Westbrook down, Schroeder stepping up. They also got Jeremy Grant's been playing really well. Steven Adams. They have a couple guys. Ferguson showing glimpses. So Nerlens Noel is still off the bench. So, and all of this, they still got Andre Roberson that's coming back. So I mean, there is light at the tunnel. To your point, and I feel like I'm curious to see how they're going to be when they're all healthy, man.
Jeremy Grant, I think in particular, I remember him in Philly, and people always thought, he's just potential. He's super athletic. Don't really know what his position was because he couldn't shoot. But now in OKC, he's really stepped up. Like, he's making huge plays on the defensive end, and he's showing that he can hit an open three. And that's all you really need from someone else other than Westbrook or Paul George, right? Yeah. Someone who can just has that athleticism, has that effort, and can still make an open shot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, to your point, people who can actually play their role. I think one that was underrated was actually Nerlens Noel. Like, there are a few games when he actually got a bit more minutes than his usual quota, and he's done really well. He's a blocking machine, runs a pick and roll really well. Good defensive stopper, right? And he's still, really young at 24 years old, right? So I think it was really interesting at first when I think there were a few games when Steven Adams was injured and you got to see glimpses of Nerlens Noel. I thought he would get more minutes, but he hasn't. But that being said, for the minutes he's gotten, he's done really effective within it. I'm curious to see how this plays out. I wonder where the minutes are going to go coming forward. But like you guys all said, man, there's some really good pieces actually on this roster that are starting to step up.
So then what do you guys think then? Like, obviously they started off really bad. We gave them no bucket a few weeks ago, and now we're giving them Mo buckets. So it's almost like there's two different teams that we're dealing with. Where do you think they end up in the West?
I think it's a combination of the opponents that they're facing, as well as there's more ball movement when there's no Westbrook. So I think with that said, I think they're playoff worthy, and I think they'll fall somewhere between 6 to 8.
Well, right now they're at 7-5 on the 7th seed of the West. We see how much better the West is becoming because essentially they're only a big two, and even their big two is not as dynamic as.
What do you mean big two? Why?
Big two? Just
Adams?
Adams
Who's
is
their
not
two?
a
Who's
big
their
three.
two?
Westbrook and Paul George, and that's it. They
Adams
have no
is
other,
in there, man.
Adams,
Come on,
is
man.
Adams is huge.
Don't sleep on Adams.
I don't know,
guy.
man. You think you putting Adams on the level of a big three caliber player?
He can give you close to what 18 and 10 a game.
He'll give you-
That's
yeah,
not
Give you
bad.
good defense.
He'll give you
Yeah.
good defense. He'll give you some pick and rolls, but I don't think. Fair enough. Okay, look, if you look at the playoffs, he does bring a defensive presence that you're right is really invaluable. I just when you look at the West though and the way they've played, and the fact that their game hasn't changed that much, I still don't see OKC going past the first round. That's the
Do they
truth.
make playoffs?
I think they'll
that's
make
the big
playoffs.
question.
Making playoffs very
Really?
reasonable as they should. They have they're paying their roster a lot of money. They're one of the highest paid rosters in the league, but I don't see them getting past this first round, man.
I think if Roberson comes back, I think when he went down, their whole team kind of changed. Like when Roberson was on the floor, even though he can't shoot, his defense is just so good for that team.
When's he expected to come back?
I think he still doesn't have a timetable.
I
he
think
had
they're
a
saying like
setback.
reevaluating December, January
Yeah.
earliest.
So I think if he comes back, say he comes back in time for the playoffs or like just a bit before, so he can kind of play his way into shape, and they have him for the playoffs, I think that they can definitely make noise in the playoffs. Like they're a good team with him, and they can they can hang with the best teams in the West. But it's just it's hard because they haven't had him now for quite a while, right?
Yeah, no, I'm still super iffy on them, man. Like even with a healthy Westbrook, like I think the Roberson factor that could be a huge lift for them. But without him, I still see them being at that 8 or 9 spot, man. Like if they do make it in playoffs, they're gonna be like squeaking in just because West is loaded this year, man. These teams are no joke, man. You got Memphis, you got Denver, all these other teams that are making strong cases for them this year. So someone's got to give, and I think I would not be surprised if OKC falls out. But we'll keep it locked. We'll see how they keep going. Did they say how long Westbrook's out for? I know it's
I
only
think
like
he doesn't have a time.
Day to day. It
He's
seems like
day-to-day.
day to day right now.
Okay.
But he's missing Monday though, so that's another game to be missed.
but it's just a high ankle sprain though, so it's nothing.
I mean, high ankle. Okay, I had high ankles. It hurt. Like it's part about it that's the toughest is you lose a lot of mobility,
True.
not side to side but up and down,
True.
and you can't really rehab that. It just takes time.
Yo, how long were you out for? How long were you out for?
I was out for a while. Like I
Borderline career-ending ankle sprain for Mitch.
haven't been on the court since.
And it was crazy too. Like he's 30 years old.
Like,
Westbrook, but okay, to be absolutely fair too, we've seen Russell Westbrook come back from injury like no tomorrow. Like, come on, when he had a dent on his face, like we've seen him play through some unreal stuff, and he always comes back so strong. Like, remember that time he broke his hand? First thing he does when he comes into play, just throws his monster dunk on. Like, Westbrook's an animal, man. So I really
How many
think
knee
he's gonna come
surgeries
back.
has he had? Like it's
This is
crazy
second-
that
this
he's
is
so
his
athletic.
second,
But
yeah.
now he's 30. Yo, he's hitting father prime, man. Father time
time
is
is-
gonna catch.
Father time is undefeated, man.
is,
But
man.
I think
It
Westbrook's still on the trajectory to do well. He's still a freak athlete, man. At 30, he's still in his prime.
True. All right, cool. So let's OKC, y'all take the belt. On the flip side, we got the no buckets of the week. This one goes to the unraveling Timberwolves, man. They've lost 5 straight. They've now sunk to the second last place in the West. They had a tough week last week, 0-4. Losses to relatively good teams in the Blazers, Clippers, Lakers, and Kings. But overall, we know that Cat and Wiggins, they're trying to bounce back a little bit from their terrible start. But man, something's off with the team, man. What do you guys think?
I think the Jimmy Butler thing was definitely weighing on them, but they don't look good. Like it's I think there's so much turmoil with that team, front office to the team itself and in the locker room. Definitely showing on the court that there's definitely a huge problem with that whole team.
Like to Mitchell's point, they're putting up stats. Like Karl Anthony Towns is getting numbers. Andrew Wiggins is not doing bad either. But just for some reason, they're not converting wins. And I've been watching a few games here and there. They just don't seem to have the chemistry needed to actually win a game.
Yo, let me ask you: is this a Jimmy Butler issue or is this a Thibs issue?
I actually think this might be a Tom Thibodeau issue because it's one thing for players to not do well. It's another thing for a coach to not guide them, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a team with no guidance. We're seeing a team with no leadership. And Is it on the players? Part of it. Is it on the coach as well? Definitely. Like the coach definitely has some liability here, has some responsibility here. So,
well, he's also their president, right? Like it's not even he's just the coach. Like he answers to himself, and the moves that he's made, like definitely showing that he's not necessarily thinking for long term. Like the way he plays his young players, he's playing Taj Gibson so many minutes, and like Taj is a great player.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to develop this team and you're trying to get everyone better, why is Gorgui Dieng not playing more? Like he's not very good, but you have to see what you have with him.
His rotations are so bad. Like this guy only plays like seven or 8 players a game, and you look at that and that's a big part of why when Jimmy Butler was going off about Thibs, he's like, why am I playing 41 minutes? Like I'm totally with Jimmy Butler, man. I'd be pissed too, man. If I was any of the starters, Jimmy Butler played 41 minutes against the Kings. And then the following game against the Lakers, he played 43 minutes. You are going to wear this guy to the ground.
That's classic Tibbs, though.
Yeah. Classic tip. But the other thing, too, is like, honestly, if you're Jimmy Butler, you just have to play. Like, he's picking and choosing games, too. So as much as I agree with you that it comes from top down, it's definitely on Jimmy Butler as well, like, and on the players.
To what? Stay ready?
To stay ready, but also, show that you're committed. Like Jimmy Butler, like again, if you were to go into your job in any other job, if you were just like, you know what, I don't feel like going in today because that's a sick day, right? But again, if you are going to your whole team and you're telling them, I feel fine, but I feel a little bit sore, so I'm not going to come in. You're going to look at that person and be like, you're not really with us. And that's a huge thing, especially in a team and in a locker room. That's a huge problem.
Have we ever heard of a player complaining about too many minutes? Like, I don't recall a time. I'm just trying to think right now. I don't recall many players that have complained about too many minutes. And it's not like Jimmy Butler's that old. Jimmy Butler is still in his prime. That comment actually caught me quite off guard when I get where he's coming from. But at the same time, you're a professional. If this is the style of the team, this is the style of the team. You shouldn't be 41 minutes is not. It's a lot, but it's not crazy, right? LeBron has put up
10
more.
games into the season, and you're already playing
And you're
back to
struggling,
back
but
40
you're
minute
struggling.
games.
Your team is not winning.
Struggling.
Your team's struggling. You got it. You're the one of the stars of the team. You're telling me you're not gonna, as a coach, you're not gonna put in your best player, especially when your team's losing.
But if that's the formula that he's been using and they're still struggling, why not try something else? Why not play some of the younger guys that you're going to develop?
How much money are you paying Jimmy Butler, bro? You're paying
doesn't matter.
Jimmy Butler.
He's
a
already
lot
on the
of
way
money.
out, though. You think about it. He said it even in offseason that he wants out. You already know he's on the way out. Why are you still trying to ride him out? Like, unless you're just trying to get him injured.
They're trying to showcase him to get a trade. And before we get too far into this, I do want to shout out Derrick Rose. How about that 50-point game? Like, I gotta say, we gotta give them some mad shoutouts, man. Because for me watching that, as a basketball fan, Derrick Rose as the player has always been one of my biggest inspirations. Derrick Rose as a player, it's the epitome of a competitor. Like being the youngest player to win MVP, to go through the tragic injuries that he's gone through, to come back. I thought that was such a beautiful game, and to see the emotions on his face, it really validated the entire journey. Like the hashtag the return is now complete. You know what I mean? Like it made me so wholesome inside seeing that. I just had to give Derrick Rose. Hey, listen,
Frankie
Derrick Rose is a player.
Frankie saw himself in that one moment.
In that one moment.
He shedded a tear.
Just on court, though, right?
Just on the court.
Only on court, right?
I'm talking about Derrick Rose.
Going through the other stuff.
I'm talking about Derrick Rose on the court. We're not going to get too far from this, okay? We're talking about Derrick Rose on the court.
Strictly as a basketball player.
But again, right? Like for someone of his storyline, I don't think there's many better stories than this, man.
Yeah, 100% I agree, man. Honestly, to see what he's gone through, again, strictly as a basketball player, to see how bad he wanted it, like to see him even break down in that final timeout before the game was even over. And he's already breaking down, like he knows how much this means to him.
Dude.
And it baffles my mind that you have a Karl Anthony Towns, you have Andrew Wiggins that's practicing with this guy, that's playing every single game with him. And yet they're not taking any of those intangibles. They're not taking that heart, right? Like that's what Jimmy Butler's talking about. Like this guy exemplified that, and honestly, mad props, man, for him to still grind it out all these years. Like this guy's contemplating retirement. This guy was,
dude, he was a big question mark, man. Yeah. He was a big. People questioned whether he'd ever come back. Like I was one of the people that questioned if he'd ever come back, right? And to see, dude, hitting those free throws to get 50, getting that clutch block at the end to end the game.
He actually like he still has athleticism. As much as people, say like, oh, injuries have destroyed his whole career, he's still athletic. He's still fast. And
He's
I think
crafty.
he's changed like his way
changed
that he
his game.
lands.
Yep.
Like he's looked at everything to make sure he doesn't injure himself again. And it kind of it shows on the court.
Yeah, that was like, man. So I gotta say, Derrick Rose, we gotta give a shout out to this dude. Just happy to see success.
Well, I was going to say like to your point of Wiggins, or to your point of Wiggins and Cat not taking anything. Like if you look at Wiggins' stats, his rookie season he averaged 16.9 points. This season he's averaging just 17 points, and this is his worst shooting season so far in 5 seasons right now. He peaked in his 3rd season at this point. Can he get better? Do you think?
This guy's getting paid $150 million.
Yo, Captain Canada, man. But I think that perfectly transitions into what we're about to talk about next. Yes, Andrew Wiggins has struggled, but is it due to an elephant in the room? And with that, we're going to talk about one of the biggest storylines we've seen yet. A big trade has gone through. Minnesota has traded Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton to the Philadelphia 76ers for Covington, Dario Saric, and a 2022 second-round draft pick. I don't think it caught anyone by surprise that this trade happened, but I was definitely surprised at what they got back. Based on all the rumors that were going on, there was a lot of draft picks coming through with the Rockets. There's possibly Josh Richardson coming out of the Heat. I really do think this was a big haul, though, man. Like, again, 2 solid players and a future second-round draft pick. What do you guys think, man? What are your first impressions?
Oh, before we jump in, Philly also traded in Jared Bayless.
Oh, Jerry Bayless as
Yeah,
well
they
into
also
that player?
added him too. Yeah.
Sweet.
I don't think it changes.
Yeah, I don't
No,
think it changes.
irrelevant.
No, I like the deal. If you look at the other offers that were supposedly out there, right, the 4 first-round picks, I mean, who really knew what those could end up being if Houston was really good?
Yeah.
And then if you look at the Josh Richardson trade, Josh Richardson is going to be really good, so I could see why Miami just didn't want to give him up, especially to bring in someone like Butler, right, and his his personality. So I actually think it was a decent haul. I think what it does is it makes Minnesota better. Like their ceiling isn't as high as what it could be if Butler stayed, but I think their floor is actually a bit higher because Covington and Saric are really good players.
Yeah,
And
they're young.
They're young, and if you look at how they're going to fit in with Minnesota, they have already going to have really good roles that are defined for them. So I think that it's actually a pretty good haul, all things considered.
And to add to your point, like I think having players like Covington and Saric, it really allows Towns and Wiggins the chance to really be the alphas that they're supposed to be. Those 2 players are more like support players. They can fit in your system, defend, hit the 3. And I think now the onus really is on Wiggins to step up.
Yep.
And now we can really see what he has in his arsenal.
Yo, you're forgetting the true alpha.
D-Rose. No, okay, but no,
Comeback season.
Like, I think you guys all brought up some really good points. With Jimmy Butler out of the equation, it does take like a very dominant presence away, and it does give the opportunity for Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins to truly take that leadership role that they've been banking on for so long. So, like you're right. Wiggins has struggled the first 3 weeks of the season, but this is a really good chance to push that reset button. And now you've got Covington, which is a 3-and-D player, and also Saric, which is a big man that can also shoot and like spread the floor. It really seems like a good fit for the Minnesota system. And on top of that, right, like one of the issues before was they were hesitant to get draft picks because they really haven't drafted well in the last few years. Like outside of Towns, they haven't really picked up any, they just haven't done great in the draft. So I think having some players that are available now, that add value right now, that are still young, signed for a few years, that's great for Minnesota. And
I think people also really underestimate how good Covington is and how valuable he's going to be for this team.
dude, he's good size for an ND player.
There's that. I mean, I would say right now he's one of the early contenders for Defensive Player of the Year. He's averaging almost 2 steals and 2 blocks a game. He was first team
player of
He was
the year,
first team
Mitchell?
all defense last year.
Woo,
You realize that, right? He was first team defense all last year.
I get that, but
He's a legitimate.
There's also players like Kawhi Leonard in the league, Mitchell. There's also
No, for sure. But I'm saying that in terms of this year, he's definitely shown that he's one of the top wing defenders in the game.
Yeah.
And if you look at Tom Thibodeau, what does he love more than
Defense.
anything? Defense, right?
Defense.
So he's going to be good for this team. And like Sean was saying, it's going to allow Wiggins to just score.
Right.
Because he is a good scorer. He just, everyone rags on him for not being able to do anything else.
Yeah.
He won't have to do as much with
Defensively.
Covington there.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Agreed.
Yeah, and he's also on a great contract too, talking about
Yeah.
Covington. So
Yeah. And so like the team fits well, man. Like, so to summarize it all, guys, like look at what does Minnesota's new lineup look like? You got what? Jeff Teague at the 1, Wiggins at the 2, Covington at the 3, Sarge at the 4, and Karl Anthony Towns at the 5.
Yeah.
What do you think of that lineup, man? I think that's if all goes well, their spacing is not the greatest, but they're all good young athletes, man, that could probably, I mean, like they have the ability to pass and shoot well. They have good size at every position. Could be a good threat.
Yeah, no, that's why I think that, all the issues that they were facing earlier with Butler on the team, a lot of that will go away, I think. I think that was a huge distraction for everybody. I mean, you have young players. It's going to be a big distraction for them. And having these two guys who, they are support. They're not trying to go in and take over the team and be like the alpha person in that locker room. So I think it definitely makes them a lot better. I think if people were worried about them not making the playoffs, I think this definitely will help them get into
they're
it.
not making the playoffs, dude. Let's be real. Let's be
Hey,
real.
I think
I don't know, man.
I think that people think that they like to look at Butler and be like, oh, what a great player. Like you want that type of player. But in reality, if you have something like that in your locker room who's causing a divide between everybody, that's a very difficult thing to overcome.
Dude, Minnesota's 4-9 right now. Okay, their 8th seed is at about 7 wins, 8 wins for 8th seed. They're not that far away, and if they can put a good game plan together and if the team can gel, I can definitely see them making the playoffs, man. Like they have the pieces, they have the depth. You still got Derrick Rose coming off the bench too.
I still see the bigger issue with Tom Thibodeau, man, because like you have so many pieces now. I'm very curious to see like how many of these players he actually ends up playing. Like Covington, I know he's gonna play a lot. Sarge, I'm hopeful that he's still gonna give a ton of minutes, but like he loves sticking to that 7 or 8 man rotation, and so I don't know, man. Maybe one of these players like isn't gonna get the minutes that they want, and I don't know, man. I'm just not high on Thibodeau, man. It's just.
Well, okay, let's wrap this one up then. At the end of the day, we've seen what the new lineup looks like. What grade would you give Minnesota's haul? I'm going to start by saying, all in all, man, I give them a B+. They were able to end a ticking time bomb in Jimmy Butler. They were able to get real assets now. And I think they've got a good young core they can probably build around over the next 2-3 years at least. And it gives both Wiggins and Towns the opportunity to be a leader. I think B+ all around, man.
Yeah, I would even say an A- solely because you're getting rid of Butler. I just think that he was so toxic for them, and getting rid of him, they're just going to get better automatically without him. And then now you're also adding in 2 guys who aren't going to look for the spotlight and that are definitely going to help the team and are upgrades at those positions. I think that all things considered, this was probably one of the better offers that they could have taken. Although I do think that if it doesn't work, to your point about Thibodeau, I think he'll be gone. If it doesn't work out, he's gone.
His final season, honestly, yeah. No, I agree with all you guys. I would give him like A-, because like I think we all said it. Like the big issue was just you have to get rid of that cancer, and that cancer is eating them up right now. I still would have liked to see them get a star in return, just because I don't think Cat and Wiggins are ready for that spotlight. I know the talent has always been there, like potential through the roof with these guys, but just what I've seen in terms of just having that heart, having that leadership, that's not something I've seen particularly well from them. But you know what? They get 2 vets in Covington and Sarge. Maybe those guys can kind of give them some advice, and they got to follow D-Rose's lead, man.
I'm going to give him an A-. I think it was definitely an addition by subtraction situation right here. And although they didn't get like a sexy name, it's not an all-star, for example, but I think those are 2 very useful parts that would actually complement the team and potentially bring out, a lot more from their 2 stars. So we'll see.
Good points, man. So let's move it on to the flip side of that trade, the Philadelphia 76ers. I got to start this off by saying this is a big win for Elton Brand. Like, as a new GM of the Philly Sixers, he hasn't been in the seat long, and he's already pulling off a win by getting one of the biggest stars that are available. joining their team to make a serious push, right? Like this is probably the star they needed. If you look at the big three of Embiid, Simmons, and Butler, what a great combination, right? You've got a wing guard that can shoot deep and also is a solid defender. And to close out that lineup, you've also got Fultz at the 1 and Jimmy Redick at the 2. This, on paper, I think can really push them through to like possibly East Finals, man. Like this is gonna make them a serious contender for the East with what? The Raptors on the way, Boston on the verge, and also the Milwaukee Bucks kind of rolling into that 3rd, 4th seed. This is a big trade. They gave some serious pieces in Covington and Sarge, but I think this was ballsy, man. I think this is good for the team. I'm excited to see what you guys think about it.
I think it's a huge risk, to be honest. Again, I think Butler for sure, 100%. He's one of the top shooting guards in the league. But I think adding that personality, like I don't know what it's going to be like. I mean, if you look at Embiid, you know, he's very outspoken. I think that he'll definitely have people's back, but I could see the personalities clashing a bit. And the other thing too is like Philly. You know, when you think of Philly and how they've built themselves up through the process, right? This is now, you're cashing all that in. They're really going, like, they're in win now mode now.
Dude, 100%. And this is a good time to do it, man. LeBron is out of the East. This, of all years, I think is a time to make a push. Do you disagree?
No, I think that is, again, I think it's a very risky move. I think what it also shows is they know that Fultz is not going to be that guy. If they really thought he was going to be that guy, they could have kept Covington and Sarge and waited for Fultz to develop into the 3rd star.
Good point.
But by getting Butler and trading those 2 key pieces, like they were 2 key pieces for Philly. Because if you take out Sarge and you take out Covington, who's shooting on that team now other than JJ Redick?
Yeah, TJ McConnell off the bench, but probably trash.
That's where they go and get Kyle Korver, man. Like,
if they get him, like, that's great.
Yeah, I agree with you in that, like, they shook up the formula, but to me, this was a no-brainer, man. Like, I think, like Frankie, you were saying, Elton Brand, he pulled the trigger. If I was, I would not have hesitated at all if I knew that's all Minnesota was asking for. Like, yes, you got Covington, who's a great 3-and-D player. Sarge, he's a great player, like, who can space the floor, but he's, at the end of the day, he's replaceable, man. You got your 22nd second round draft pick. That's
not too much.
Yeah, irrelevant. So the only player you're really losing is Robert Covington.
But Jimmy Butler is a short-term rental, though. Theoretically, he's a free agent at the end of the year.
But what keeps players there? Winning. True. So, and I think with that current team, as good as they could have been, like Fultz, we've seen there's still a lot of question marks with him. Yeah. They weren't going to get past the second round. Like let's be honest, even if they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, they would have been a quick bounce. I like, to me, it would have been Raptors at number 1 in the East, Boston the 2nd, and I would even put Milwaukee over Philly right now. So this was a trigger that they had to do to even just keep themselves relevant. Yeah. And the way I see this, man, I see Jimmy Butler, man, he's a happy dude. He essentially traded, if you think about this, he essentially traded Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns for Embiid, or for Simmons and Embiid.
Yeah.
2 guys that are more athletic, arguably, better defensive players, and arguably have more heart. So,
and a team that's been more successful, right?
Exactly.
And you're also in the East. You're not playing in the crazy West. You're not playing against LeBron.
And he traded aging D Rose for young Markelle Fultz.
Well, I don't know about that one, man.
So then my big question for them now is, who's dribbling the ball? Who's handling the ball?
Simmons.
Well, you still had Simmons or Butler. Simmons or Butler can both bring the ball up.
Well, I mean, if you look at Butler, right? He needs the ball in his hands to be effective. For Butler to truly be effective, he needs the ball. He's not a spot-up shooter. He can shoot the ball, but he's not a spot-up shooter.
But he can also be a great slasher, though, right? Like, and the thing with Simmons is that he's known to find you if you're cutting. Like, look at all those dime passes he
I think
finds.
Simmons is a pass-first player.
Yeah.
Like, he's shown that he can be a pass-first player. Joel Embiid, he needs the ball, but he's not as demanding as other big men, to be honest. Like, because he can set himself in the post and he can go to work, but he can also shoot from outside.
And he can shoot.
And he's
got range. Yeah,
dude, Embiid also makes the right pass too. So I actually don't think that'll be that big of an issue, to be honest. I think there's enough chemistry, like there's enough passing ability on that team that the ball won't be as stuck as, like, maybe even better than Soda, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see, man. I definitely think there's some huge upside for Philly here.
I know there's concerns about the lack of shooting, but the NBA is a star-driven league, and stars like Jimmy Butler do not grow on trees. So if that opportunity presents itself, no-brainer. You get a player of his caliber, and then you fill out the roster as you need with shooters later. Like, for example, the rumors of Korver joining.
Yep.
So once you have Redick, Korver, with the slashers like Simmons and Butler, I think that's a very, very dangerous team. And being a Toronto Raptors guy, I am a little bit afraid.
100%. Sean, you brought up some great point, man. Because I guarantee you, when it comes to March, this will not be the same team we see. Like, there's so many things that can happen in between, whether it's a waiver, whether it's a buyout candidate, or even just a trade that happens coming through, right? Because Philly is stocked with assets. We can't forget that, right? They've got.
Don't they still have
assets.
draft picks coming?
They still have draft picks coming.
But
they
who else? Like, who else is a value on that team that they can get rid of now?
Fultz? I think
For
Fultz is
Korver?
a good
You're not
trade candidate.
getting. No one's going to really trade you much for Fultz at this point.
Really?
No,
They need to see
yeah.
progress.
We're calling Holmes. Holmes is not bad.
He's on Phoenix now.
Oh, snap! You're right.
So even if you think about who starts at the 4, I mean,
well,
you put Simmons there, right, to guard the 4. But if you have Simmons on there and you have Butler, and again, who's shooting? I don't know who you put in. They can be a shooter. JJ Redick can't be the only.
TJ
shooter on the
McConnell.
team in your
Wilson
starting
Chandler's
lineup.
not a bad shooter,
Yeah,
but so I think to that point, I feel like they're gonna look at who else is available, and probably before the All-Star break, I think before the trade deadline, I feel like they're gonna set themselves up because they know, like you said, that it's a win now mentality. Like, I think they're gonna go all in. Maybe you trade some of your younger guys, you try to get a Korver, you try to get another shooter, but that's a good problem that you have, right? And to Sean's point, like, at the end of the day, man, like, we saw what the Raptors had to give up to get Kawhi Leonard. Yet they give up a star to get a star. For them to give up role players to get a star, a franchise-altering star, that's a win. Yeah. I would give them an A+ for that, man.
True. Yeah. So on that, before I grade them, I do want to make a correction too. Wilson Chandler actually is a big underrated piece. I actually think he might go into the starting lineup over Fultz, where you shift Simmons up at the 1. And he's like a good spacer, man. He's a guy that's bounced around the league, but he's a legit vet. He can space the floor, he can shoot, he can play defense.
Think of the size of that lineup,
that's gonna be a ridiculous
Defensively,
lineup, man.
these guys are gonna just shut down everybody.
Yeah. And I really like Sean's point. This is a star-driven league. I got to give the Philly 76ers an A, a solid A for pulling the trigger on this.
Okay, before I grade it, where do you guys think? So, looking at the top teams in the East, where would you put Philly? Then?
They're top 4. They're top 4.
No, but where?
Easily.
So rank those 4.
3 or
We
4.
know what the 4 is.
I put up number 3. I
3
put
or
up
4.
number 3.
Between
So who's number? Like, who would you say then?
It's like Toronto 1, Toronto, Boston 1, 2. Okay, I don't think there's any changing that.
Toronto 1,
Toronto
Boston
1.
2.
Hopefully, yeah, at their pace, I think Toronto stays at the 1. But realistically, at 3 and 4, it's going to be Milwaukee and Sixers.
Are we talking end of the season rankings or who's going to come up on top?
Let's say end of the season, right? Because playoffs, anything can happen.
I'm going to go Toronto, Milwaukee, Philly, Boston.
Wow, sleeping in Boston.
Well, Boston has been struggling. That's a good point.
Yeah.
What do you think of Mitch?
No, I agree with Sean. Like, I think Milwaukee's gonna be really good, and you see how they've been playing this year. I think they've been really good. I would do Toronto, Boston, still Milwaukee, and then the Sixers.
I think the bigger question was if they didn't make the trade for Butler, where would they have fallen? Because they would have gone to 4th or 5th. I think.
I think they still would have been top 4, but I think that the gap between that first 3 and Philly
was
would have been
wide.
much bigger if they didn't do the trade.
So what's the grade, Mitchell?
I would give them. I'm gonna give them a C+.
What?
Wow.
Again, solely
You gotta
because
caveat that, Mitchell.
We're done.
I think Butler, again, I think that people are like, just last week, people were saying how Butler, like, no one wants that type of player in their team, right?
Yo, but he's a star.
And now that he makes a trade, you make a trade. I think everything's flipped now, right? Everything's flipped as, oh, Butler's such a good player. Butler's such a good player, but just I think people are underestimating the impact that he has on team culture. When you look at how he was on the Bulls, it's not like these issues weren't there. There's a lot of issues with him, and I think just putting him in, you put him in a locker room with really big personalities like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Like, I think that can, who knows what effect that's going to have. And I don't like the fact that they gave up 2 key pieces of their starting lineup.
Yep, fair.
That definitely spaced the floor for Simmons and Embiid. That's all they were there for. And now you have less spacing on the team. Like you guys said, maybe if they get Korver, it's going to be a lot better. But I just, when you think of just straight up fit, I don't like it as much as you guys.
To that point about the culture, I agree that because he's such a big personality that like he could clash. But on the flip side of it, like if you have a culture with an Embiid or Simmons, like they have such outgoing personalities as is, they could actually absorb Butler's personality, and not like it could be a perfect blend. Like I agree that they could bump heads, but if they're all on the same page, like you just have another guy that's just vocal, that's not willing to back down, like that could add a lot. He could bring that intensity of the team to another level.
For sure. I totally agree with Ben's point. And like, wait, hold on. We've all graded the deal, right? So
not yet. I'll give him an A though.
A?
Solid A.
Solid A. Yo, star-driven league, right? Like, I'm telling you, I think to Sean's point, this was the right deal for the team. If they really wanted to win now, to what you were saying earlier. And when I was thinking about this, one question I wanted to wrap this on was, is this the end of the process? Like for Philly, they've been notoriously known for, hey, sacrificing seasons. Like they had some dark times, but that turned over some great draft picks. And now has it all culminated to this moment now where they're going all in? This is it, right? Is this the end of the process?
I wouldn't say this is the end of it. I would say this is the next step in the process. Because at some point, like you keep drafting, at some point you got to make a winning move. Like you can't, you can't do a checkmate with just little pawns, man. You got to go for the big guns.
But this was the big piece,
exactly.
right? You know what I mean?
So to that point, I think there's levels to the process, and I think this was the next step. This was a championship move to that process.
I I think they definitely are ending that process. And to me, if they're ending the process and for this, like if this is the team that they believe can win a championship, they're not competing with the Warriors no matter what.
That's unfair, man. Like, I guess the compared against the Warriors is almost.
But that's what the process was for, right? To win a championship.
At the
Are
time,
you saying that I don't think that this process will end in a championship?
This process started kind of like 2013, 2014 when they drafted Joel Embiid in 2014. Since then they got Okafor, they got Simmons, they got Fultz, and a lot of picks in between. I think if you look at when they first started this process, and you look at the team they have now in that league, this team would be killing it in 2014. This would be a dominant team in the 2014 league. It's almost unreal to see how much the game has changed when you have a team like the Warriors that it almost takes logic away. You're right. It kind of breaks my heart that a team like the Philly 76ers, led by Sam Hinkie, being willing to sacrifice wins for ping pong balls, right? To come back in 3 years and build a team like this, I can't say this is nothing short of success, right? They have the pieces to trade for Jimmy Butler and have some dominant stars in today's league. If you look at a rebuild, this is one of the most successful rebuilds we've seen coming out of 2014, right? Like a 3-4 year gap. Look at the team they're putting together, man. From a 9-win season to what they are now, like what, possibly 3rd or 4th seed in the league. This is one of the most successful rebuilds I've ever seen, man.
But you're talking about it like it's over, dude. Like it's.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Still
The
got
tanking's
draft
done.
picks.
They're no longer. What I'm trying to say is they're done tanking, and this is the result of it. You know what I mean? Like people were always saying,
transition to the win now mode.
yeah, exactly. So people are always doubting, though. Hey, is it actually worth tanking for success? Right? And look at what they've done. They sacrificed so many seasons. It was some ugly, ugly seasons to be a Sixers fan. For them to come out like this now, dude, I think that's an A++, man. You got to give Sam Hinkie credit, man.
To me, I think you need to evaluate this at the end of this season, whether or not Jimmy Butler stays, and if he doesn't, what they do with that roster spot. That kind of determines where this process is and where it's headed.
True.
Before we can really say.
I remember Philly still has cap room.
Yeah,
Simmons and Fultz are still on rookie contracts, right? So they can give Butler what he wants in terms of the max.
But Jimmy Butler worth 5 years, $190 million. Like 5 years, $190 million.
Dude, if John Wall's getting max, Jimmy Butler 100% deserves max.
Oh man!
And on that note, man, let's transition over to another player that recently joined a new team. We got Tyson Chandler, the LA kid, returning home to the Lakers. Man, what an impact he's provided already, man. We saw his game-winning block against Trae Young that preserved the win. Does he plug a lot of these holes that the Lakers have?
I think Tyson Chandler is a winning player, a type of player that any championship could use. But I think I mentioned this in episode 1. The Lakers, there's just not enough star power, in my opinion. I think this year is more of a learning and development year. So I don't really see Chandler moving the needle significantly.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't think he moves the needle for sure. Come on, it's Tyson Chandler. He's on his way. He's on the old age right now. But it's crazy to see how fast he can transition and make an impact on the team. I think it goes to show how great and versatile LeBron is, because there's all these players that can just be plugged and played, right? And I can only imagine what happens at the trade deadline. This is going to show that maybe Melo's going to join them. Maybe there's more stars. Like,
Please don't.
yeah, but who knows, right? Like, I think Lakers have a lot of space. They can make some real deals coming into the trade deadline. And LeBron just shows, you take any solid player that's willing to win and willing to put in the grind, they will do well playing with LeBron. And that's what makes it crazy, man. This Lakers team is so versatile right now. They're 7-6. Like, they had a slow start, but they're really starting to shine through. They've got some young pieces. I can't wait, man. I think like Tyson Chandler, even though he's not a great player, it goes to show how versatile the Lakers are.
To Sean's point, I agree. Like, I don't think this moves the needle at all. I think probably what it shows is, as long as if you're a center in today's game and all you can really do is play defense and roll, you'll have a spot in the league. And that's just definitely what Tyson Chandler brings to this team. But in terms of his overall impact and his overall impact on where the Lakers go, I don't think it really does anything for them. They already had JaVale McGee that was doing the exact same thing that Tyson Chandler brings, and he's been really good.
Yep.
But again, when you look at them in the West, does this really change anything? I don't think it does.
It doesn't change anything. I wouldn't say it moves the needle significantly for them, but I would say that he does move the needle. But, you know, let's keep in mind that this guy's a 36-year-old center, right? Like, he wasn't brought here to be like a shot blocking machine, like a mini Dwight Howard. And the thing is that he was brought in here for one role, and that was to be a backup big to JaVale McGee, get some blocks, get some rebounds, and bring some toughness. And I think he's done that. Like, I think that's something, you know, you could say that's, you know, a small piece to a team, but for the Lakers, a team that's lacking a lot of size, lacking a lot of interior defense, that's a huge piece for them. And we saw what LeBron has done with JaVale McGee. He turned this guy from Shaq the Fool MVP to possibly, you know, in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. So, like, I think...
Yo, it's still early, man.
I'm not saying he's going to win it, but do you see how many blocks that this guy's doing? Like, he's making a huge impact. And I think he can... And I think Tyson Chandler is only going to follow LeBron's lead, and he's only going to echo LeBron's voice in the locker room, because he himself has championship experience, right? So,
exactly.
Like, if anything, like, he brings a lot of those intangibles along with the defensive presence, and I think that's big for the Lakers, man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I think Tyson Chandler's got great chemistry for a player like LeBron, because he's got the grittiness, he's got the championship mentality, and he's just got the vet presence, because he's been around, man. He knows what it takes to win. He knows what it's like to lose. I think he appreciates the opportunity a lot. You know what I mean? So I think it's a great signing for the Lakers for a very cheap price. We'll see, man.
Agreed. All right, cool. So, Lakers back in the mix, man, making moves. A lot of teams making moves. Another team that's been making moves. This one was a bit of a shocker to me, and I'm sure it was to you guys, but the Rockets and Carmelo Anthony. It's been reported that, you know, they had to sit down, and that most likely Carmelo Anthony has played his last game in Houston. That was a crazy shocker to me, just because seeing how he's played, he hasn't played great for Houston, but you know, he's blended in. He's done what they've asked him to do off the bench. He's given them some scoring. I don't know what to make of this, man. It's just, you know, I want to know what you guys think in terms of, you know, Melo, a player that's still on a max contract, you know,
that's
like
crazy.
Even, as much as last year, people were saying that he's still a key piece for OKC. Yep. Houston picking it up this year, he was supposed to be a huge piece for them. To go from this to now possibly bounce out of Houston, and I don't even know where he fits in the NBA anymore. Like, it's sad, man. What do you guys think? Were you guys surprised? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think that, you know, Melo has a name, right? He has the star name based on what he's done in the past. But when you look at him now, and you look at it, you know, you look at his season last year with the OKC, you can see that he's not the same player. everyone was expecting him to be able to just spot up and hit threes. He can't do that at the moment. And I think that people were maybe expecting too much because of his name. Again, when you look at Houston, I mean, they started off the season really bad. And people are quick to point the blame at Melo and saying he's not fitting in, he's taking really bad shots, he doesn't mesh well. But when you look at also what else happened to that team, they gave up their two of their best wing defenders and in Ariza and Ba Mute. Replace it with Melo, and people are now like, "Oh, Melo, this is all your fault. This is all your fault." I think it's just it's probably it sucks to me that he's being used as a scapegoat for why Houston hasn't been doing well.
100%.
I don't think this can be pinned on Melo, and I think he's kind of in an unfair situation where just because he's on a decline, people are like, "Oh, it's all your fault."
I honestly, to Mitch's point, I totally agree. There was such high expectations of Melo going to the Rockets that there wasn't reasonably a way for him to fit in. And if you look at the early set of drama that's been going on, or just the chemistry issues or the team issues that have been going on, hey, James Harden has missed a few games. Chris Paul suspended for a few games. There's a lot of team chemistry that's still being built. And for them to make such a quick decision on saying, hey, this might be the last time we see Melo in a uniform for the Rockets so early into the season, that is shocking. He's still a star. Like Ben said, he's a max contract player right now. Whether or not he deserves it or not, he earned that money, right? He got that contract at some point in time. He's a solid player that's shown a strong resume. And it just breaks my heart to see him fall like this so quickly, man. I don't think it's just on him. I still think he's got some ball to play, but dude, this was shocking.
What do you think was the reason? Do you think it was like a culture issue? Like, do you think he was clashing?
Rockets are just
with
losing.
players?
It's not like you can't even pinpoint any of that. They're just losing right now, and that can be a combination of things. I just think it's so early to be doing this because, actually, I don't know, man. It just breaks my heart to see Melo like this right now.
And like looking at Melo and his stats, it's not like he's not putting up numbers. 13 points on, not the best field goal percentage, but as a off the bench gunner, I'd say that he's doing like an average to adequate job. But then overall, you got to look at the bigger picture. Right? Like as Mitchell said, what are the type of players that they lost, and then the type of player that Melo is that you're bringing in. So really, it's not really on Melo. You can't expect him to be plugged in and give you the same level of defense that like a player like Ariza would give you, right? So really, you got to consider overall fit before you kind of point fingers at Melo specifically.
And to your guys' point about his contract, like the Knicks gave him that contract, right? And at that time, he was good. Houston only is paying him $2.4 million. Yeah. They signed him for 1 year, $2.4 million. You think about that really in the context of the entire league. That's nothing.
That's vet min.
It's a vet min.
He's playing pretty decent for a vet min, right?
And again, like for Houston fans and everyone else in the league pinning it on him, like it doesn't make sense to me.
So what's really going on here? Like we know they're struggling. The rumor is that they're gonna waive him or buy him out. I still think he's got a lot of value. And to your question earlier, I can see other teams using Melo, whether it's the Lakers, whether now it's the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of people can use a four, like a power forward that can shoot threes, that can space the floor. Maybe not the greatest defender, but can catch and shoot. And it's crazy because when I look at how Houston's played, I really do think Melo can fit that role. He can catch and shoot.
This was the perfect system for him.
It's only been 10 games.
It's only been 10 games, man.
And honestly, I want to know how Chris Paul thinks of this whole thing because he's one of they're close friends.
Major recruiting. Yeah.
They're close friends, right? Like, and we talked about if there's any player that can kind of get Carmelo's head, straight, get him to buy into the system, it would have been CP3. And like to have him not come out and say anything, like it makes me believe that I'm not trying to start rumors, but it makes me believe that CP3 and him maybe they weren't on the same page because like. If I was CP3 and one of my best friends gets, you're telling me that he's played his final game and he's done everything we've asked him to do, like I would not be okay with it. And he's a franchise player in Houston. Like he should technically be stepping up for him, unless there's something that's happening in the locker room or behind the scenes that we haven't seen.
So to that point, like you had mentioned, CP3 is not defending him because Melo's not buying into the system. That's like my biggest beef with this whole situation. It's like, for example, you can't plug in a player like, I don't know, someone that's offensively gifted and expect him to be a defensive player of the year. And likewise, you can't plug in a player like Roberson on Oklahoma City and bring him in and expect him to drop 20 points a game. Right? every player plays a role in the system, and you got to factor in the fit. So I really like that whole narrative of not buying into the system. To me, it's really, really unfair.
Like they knew what they were getting with
exactly.
it, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And what I was saying was that he bought into the system. Like as far as we saw, like he's willing to come off the bench. Like he was doing his role. That's why like I'm surprised that, if I was Chris Paul, like from outside looking in, Melo's done everything that Houston's asked him to do.
Dude, he's played
So
off the
that's
bench
why,
every
like,
game.
I think that's why this was a shock. That like, why there has to be something else that's behind the scenes that we don't know that's happening. I don't think it's strictly a basketball issue, is what I'm saying.
I think it's hard to say, man. It's just maybe Houston has such high expectations that if they don't see results now, they're going to scramble to do something. And if you know Daryl Morey, man, he takes a lot of actions, right? He's willing to roll the dice and he's willing to make some moves. So I think that's just really what it is, especially for them coming off a Western Conference Finals finish. The expectations are really high for the Rockets, right? It's championship or bust.
But he's only getting paid the vet min.
I agree, man.
Right? Like it's not like.
But they got to put
keeping
the
him.
blame somewhere. Right?
Like yeah, and
I guess.
it could be they have a new owner. Maybe he's just like I want to make a change quickly. Melo hasn't
Why are
been
we
made.
not top 3 in the West? Something needs to give, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Honestly, and I think a lot of this just makes you realize that like it sucks being a star in this league, man. An aging star, especially when your role is changing. And like, I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about this because like you look at other stars that have transitioned well from a star to a role player. Like you look at how D Wade's been doing in Miami. You look at how Vince Carter's transitioned well. Like, what do you think? I guess is the hardest part about being an aging star. And do you think that there's gonna be other Melos that we're gonna see?
I can only say from my own experience as an aging star on the court, Father Time is undefeated. Okay,
Frankie, you had to have.
and so are injuries, okay? And so are injuries, okay? But the truth is, I think for all of us, what's crazy about basketball is that we can all relate. We've all been at a point in our lives where we're so fast, we're so strong, and we're able to cut to the basket, just use our strength and speed, and just shoot over players due to sheer youth and athleticism, right? But over time, that fades away, and you have to learn to adapt. Some people haven't been able to adapt as well, just due to the nature of their game. And Melo is one of those people, right? Being an offensive dominant player, he used to rely on his size and his strength to really, hit that shot above other players. His footwork was always amazing, but that was a lot of speed. And stars are keeping up, man. Like these young guys in the league, they're keeping up, but he's not able to get those looks anymore. I just think for Melo, he hasn't been able to accept that. And more so when we saw him in OKC, the statement of saying, AP, they want me to play off the bench. Like, regardless of all the skills and athletic abilities that might be on the decline, his mental game did not adjust. And I think that was the biggest fault of Melo.
So would you say it's mainly an ego issue with aging stars?
I think it's with Melo specifically, I hate to say it, man, because he's got all the tools. I just don't think he adjusted his mental game there, man. He just hasn't accepted the fact that Father Time is undefeated, man.
But to that point, right? Say the Rockets didn't bring this whole Melo issue up and start these rumors of him playing his last game. What has he done that has demonstrated that he's an ego?
AP.
That's exactly
This season, I think.
Like,
This
This
season,
season, no.
This is the first season. You're right. He's shown that something. He's willing to take a step, but it's still not there, right? Like I think it's not a 1 day thing. It takes time to accept it
10
all.
games.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. To my
10
point, it's only
games
been
to
10
give up on
games.
it. I think that's, if anything, it's going to hurt Melo even more. Like the perception of him now of, even if it's just unknown, at this point now, people are going to be like, I don't know if we want to take a chance on Melo. I don't know if we want to bring that onto our team.
Because his confidence is going to get shot, man, for sure.
Because I'm talking strictly on what we know, so we don't know. Obviously, we're not privileged to what's going on behind the scenes, right? But just from what's publicly known in the news reports or whatever, there's nothing that I heard that Melo has said or done that's shown he's disruptive to the team environment, right?
Yeah. Well, again, we're not saying he's disruptive to the team environment. We're just saying he hasn't transitioned his game well with age. Because I think if you look
How do you judge that?
Yeah, so again, if you look at what we talked about with Dwayne Wade, right? Being able to take, first of all, more of a bench role earlier in his years so that he learns how to pass better, right? He learns how to play off the ball better. Melo, you can tell this is his first time learning to play off the ball, and that's why he's not doing so well, right? Same thing with whether it's Vince Carter, whether it's KG, whether it's Dirk. They all learn to take lesser roles but still be effective in their short sprints, right? And Melo just hasn't done that.
But you
think
could technically argue, like for example, Vince Carter's stats, they're worse than Melo's, right?
No, for sure. But I definitely think he's been a more effective player within his minutes, though, right? And over time, he became more of a pass first player. Like you can see the way he penetrates into the basket now. He's not looking to finish right away. He looks to make that pass. With Melo, I feel like he's still at the point where, hey, I'm getting this ball right now. I'm going to shoot, right? And like, yes, he might shoot less. He might have the ball less. But whenever he does have the possession, it's still a scoring mentality first.
I think like if you look at him and Melo this year, you look at him last year, hasn't been good, right? But his last year with the Knicks, he was still averaging over 20 points a game. So to say that he's just, it's all because of his ego, I think it's I think it's a bit unfair to pin everything on Melo.
Fair.
When you look at, so these past few seasons when he hasn't been playing well, is the coach putting him in the position to be successful? If you look at Vince, right, to your point, Vince, he's definitely transitioned, but he's also played for coaches that have put him in that position to be allowed to be able to be that player. Dirk, Rick Carlisle is Dirk's biggest fan.
Always went to bat to him.
And and Dirk, for sure, he doesn't have as big of an ego as Melo, where he's not willing to come off the bench. He's always been willing. I think it's just, I think it's a bit tough because it's only really been 2 seasons where he's been really bad. And 2 seasons for 2 teams that have been a bit questionable in terms of how fast they're giving up on him.
Yeah.
And if you look at his age, he's 34 now, right? Like, and we saw, and I think this is what you see with a lot of stars, man. Once they hit kind of their early 30s, that's always that transition mark in terms of their body. Like, they start slowing down. Like, I think it's tough for any star to do that. And that's why sometimes, like, I don't blame Melo, man. Like, at the end of the day, if he still has that confidence in himself to be like, if it's fourth quarter, like, I still want to be the one that takes the game-winning shot. Like, yes, part of that is ego, but part of that's just he still has that confidence in himself. Like, you can't blame him, right? Like, and sometimes you need that confidence to be able to hit the shots. Because, like, you look at Kobe, right? Even in those final stages of his career, his shooting percentages dropped way down. But this guy was still like, yo, give me the rock. Fourth quarter, I'm still shooting the ball. Like, I don't care if it's like Julius Randle. I don't care who any of these young guns are. I'm still gonna shoot it. And like, I don't know if maybe it's a mentality of players that grew up in the 90s, but like where you're just like, hey, I have to lead the team. Like, I'm that go-to guy versus like this new era of players where it's like, hey, team ball. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't fault him for that. And maybe, Sean, to your point, like maybe this was the year that Melo was starting to make that transition, right? And like he just got the bat in the stick.
Like, I hate to bring this player up as a comparison for him in terms of a decline, but if you look at the numbers that Antoine Walker put up,
Antoine
4-point Walker.
Antoine Walker, he was a low efficiency scorer, and he was really good at that. He was an all-star. And literally, he had basically 2 seasons where he declined, and that was it for him.
But he was never a max player like Melo, though. I don't think
he was one of the highest paid players.
He was one of the high players
at one point.
Yeah.
But Melo was legitimately top max. Like, he was a franchise player.
He was, right? But if Melo's teams never went that far. With him as a star, he was never.
It's true.
You don't say he's a franchise player in the same level as you said with LeBron or Dwayne Wade, even Chris
Kobe
Bosh.
Bryant.
I would rather have Chris Bosh in their prime. I'd rather have Chris Bosh.
And I think that's what's so baffling is that Melo has always been relatively healthy, man. Like, there's so many other players that you see where either their career was cut short, like a Brandon Roy, like or you see
T-Mac.
Yeah, T-Mac, or you see players that have gone through major injuries that have derailed their careers, like Isaiah Thomas. Like, but the fact that Melo's always been relatively healthy, like this honestly, this really baffles me. This really, really baffles me.
It's shocking.
Do you think that if it was a different era, now obviously the era is completely changed and it's shooting threes. Melo has never actually shot that many threes in his career. He made his money,
deep twos, step backs,
getting into the post.
Yeah.
If he was in another era, and say in the 90s, do you think he'd be seen as the same type of player, better or worse?
No, I think that's a good point, man. I think the game has changed, and players with Melo's game is is just becoming less and less valued. Like, look at DeMar as an example. A shooting guard that can't shoot threes is just not as valuable in today's league. Carmelo, a big power forward that has great, deep shooting range, but not necessarily the three. They just don't transition well in today's league, right? Because now you look at his position at the 4, you need a lot of 3 and D type of players, and Melo's just not there.
I think that's actually a really interesting comparison, DeMar and Melo, because both in their prime, Melo would have been a stronger guy in the post, arguably a better outside shooter than DeMar. DeMar has better probably footwork, but
DeMar's a better passer too.
DeMar's a
right?
better passer.
And the thing with DeMar is he's shown that he'll improve.
Yep.
In the areas that he's weak, he's going to improve.
Yep. And he's not as ball dominant in the sense that he doesn't hog the ball. He's not a chucker, right? Whereas Melo was kind of known for being a chucker for a while, right? Even on his Denver days, even on his Knicks days. So I think that's the image. Like when you guys asked earlier, what is it about his mental game? It's the fact that he hasn't been able to run away from that chucker image. Like, think about it. If you're in Houston right now, when you pass Melo the ball, do you think you're going to get the pass back? Right? Like, I think that's the type of chemistry issues that are unseen.
But see, that's the thing, right?
I don't know, right? Like,
That's the system Houston has.
Exactly.
You get the ball, you're shooting it.
Gerald Green.
That's
He's
true.
gunning. Ryan Anderson. They were gunning.
So it's weird because it's like he's a perfect fit for that system.
Theoretically, yeah, just shoot.
And they only gave him 10 games.
I think this is the last we've seen of the Banana Boat Boys. He ain't
sad,
riding
man.
that no more, man. This is honestly this. We'll see how things shake up. But do you think Melo's gonna land with another team, or do you think this is?
Oh, he's not
it?
done. Don't get me wrong. If he gets signed and or if he gets like bought out or waived, someone's gonna pick him up.
Warriors.
Lakers.
Just Warriors.
Warriors,
Stack. I think Philly's a good option, to be absolutely honest. Like Philly can use a vet for cheap that can shoot threes.
That locker room.
But think of the Lakers though. How crazy would it be if he went to the Lakers? That actually wouldn't be a bad one either. Like they can use some more shooting, man, and like plug and play with LeBron, right? LeBron can play beside anybody and make him better.
I honestly think if you could take Melo and Melo's going to play to his role, you put him on any contender, he's going to help the team.
Exactly. For a vet man, you can't go wrong. For like he's a current max player. He's getting paid max money right now.
So if we're all saying that he hasn't been able to escape that chucker mentality and his perception around the league, if you're one of those teams, are you really willing though to take that chance?
Dude, LeBron can fix him. LeBron, if Chris Paul couldn't, LeBron can do it. Okay, Chris Paul's not that great of a was that State Farm. He's not as nice of a State Farm agent as you
Paul,
thought.
man.
But if you're Melo, you probably I think at this point in his career, he knows that the end is coming. He wants to win a championship. He's never won.
I think
He's not
LeBron
going
would
to
be
win.
a great pairing, man.
But he's not going to win with the Lakers.
You don't know that.
You don't know that.
They
If
got
not
Tyson
this year,
Chandler
I
now.
know.
You don't know
If
that.
not this year, next year, and I really think
They're not signing him to a multi-year deal.
they can
There's
sign
no
up
one's
for a
going
vet
to.
min next year. They can sign up for a vet min next year too. Melo's got enough money, and he's still getting maxed this year, right? So I definitely think, like to your question, he's going to get picked up. There's no way he's going to be he's not going to be unemployed this year.
You know what team he'd be really good on? The Shanghai Sharks.
Mitchell, what the hot takes? Oh my goodness, man.
All right, man. So we'll stay tuned. We'll see how things unfold there. Let's transition over now to the Wall of L's, man. Let's look at 3 upcoming games for next week. We got the first one. We got Utah at Boston. They had a great game just last week with the return of Hayward. Were you surprised that Utah fans?
They
booed
were
him?
booing him.
They were
I
booing
was
the
so
hell out
shocked.
of this guy. Yeah,
It was the first game back in Utah, but I was like, bro, you gonna boo this man that just came off a year injury?
Yeah, but he wanted to leave. Right?
That was dark, but come on,
yeah.
man.
Any
I
other
agree,
player,
I agree,
they
but
want to leave. Like you're gonna boo him.
Dude, he brought Utah as far as he could. Okay,
I was hoping it was gonna be mixed ovations or something like that.
that was
but
savage,
still,
man. You're gonna
just-
boo a man that literally just got injured for an entire year. I was like, that's dirty, man. That's savage. Man, I don't like that, Utah fans. I don't like
welcome
that.
to Utah, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote Boston for this one, just because. No, but for real, I think Boston's starting to hit their stride. Yeah, they have a few injuries here and there, and it's kind of shaking up a little bit, but they're starting to gel, man. I think Boston's gonna do well. Utah's got a few question marks here and there, but I think Boston takes it at home.
All right.
I'm gonna go Boston as well. I think both teams are actually really, really good, but home court advantage.
Okay, Boston.
Boston
Sean?
for me too.
Boston. What you got, Ben?
Boston all around, man.
Really?
Right now, Utah's they're shaky, man. I think I don't know, man. They can't close out games. They're really, really struggling trying to close out games right now.
Donovan Mitchell was injured though for a few games.
He was,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm liking Boston that home court, man. Denver at Milwaukee. We got that one coming up Monday as well.
Where
We
is
all
it?
got
At Milwaukee.
at Milwaukee.
Oh, gotta go Milwaukee with this one.
Yeah, I got an easy pick on Milwaukee. Like Giannis is a freak athlete, man. Some of those highlights you've seen in the past week are just unreal. Like he just like 2 steps from the 3-point line, and he's getting to the basket and he's dunking over centers. It's not fair. It's not fair. And now that he's added a 3-point arsenal too, it's just dude,
you know
sky's
who,
the limit, man.
You know who his 3-point arsenal is?
What's 3-point?
Brooke Lopez.
Brook Lopez.
This dude has
That's
attempted more 3-pointers than 2-pointers.
Dude, but he's doing well, man. For a big man to shoot threes, like
But this is I've
Yeah,
never
no.
seen a guy transition this rapidly. Like, and this guy shooting deep threes.
yo, it's 2018, 2019 NBA season, man. This is the modern era.
But to be real, that's actually a smart game plan to pull their big
Yup.
so that he's outside of the paint and then let Giannis go to work one on
Giannis
one.
takes 2 steps
Yeah.
from the 3-point line, and he's dunking the ball, like dunking it down, man. It's just unreal. We
Okay,
got picks on
Mitch, who you got?
I'm gonna go Denver solely because I don't think Giannis can cover everyone on the court.
Yeah,
Tough one,
that's
man.
fair. That's fair. I also like Denver on this one. I think Denver right now they're just super confident, man, and I think Jamal Murray, man, he's gonna have a field
Jamal
day.
Murray's
He's gonna just
Yo,
break
Jokic
Eric
is
Bledsoe.
making passes, man. Yo, Jokic is dropping dimes. He had a monster game the other day. Like
Yeah, he's been playing. extremely
Denver's
well.
looking nice, but just Milwaukee, man.
And then we got also Monday we got OKC at Sacramento. Sacramento surprising a lot of people, man.
Man, I think I gotta go to Sacramento with this. I think
Ooh.
Westbrook's still kind of hurt. Paul George is he's stepping up, but still don't think he's enough to carry that team just yet. I feel like he doesn't have the leadership presence to really carry that team. It's still Westbrook's team, you know.
Yeah,
I don't see them winning this one without Westbrook.
and De'Aaron Fox, man, this dude's balling out.
Aaron Fox, man, young blood.
I'm gonna go OKC.
Okay.
I think Sacramento just beat OKC, like in their last game. So I'm gonna think that OKC's gonna come out and really want that back.
Revenge tour, Sean.
Gonna go OKC too.
Okay, see, I'm gonna ride Sacramento, man. I'm liking the energy by these guys. All right, cool. So those are our picks. Keep checking out our social media channels, man. Keep rocking with us, and also don't forget to check out our website, mobucketspodcast.com. We've got all our content that we're producing. We're putting everything up there. We've got our podcast up there. We've got articles. We got opinion pieces. Lots more to come, and you can also connect to all our social media channels through there. And man, appreciate you guys rocking with us. Anything else this week?
Can't wait for the year, man. Can't wait for the season.
Yes, sir. Okay, cool. If there's nothing else, we'll catch everybody next week. Until then, keep getting buckets. Peace.